Good evening, Melbourne. You rock the most. My name's Charlie. I work for Ensemble. It's a branded entertainment agency, part of the IPG Media Brands Network. It's a global network of media agencies and other agencies and bits and bobs. And what that basically means is we never make mistakes and we never fuck up. Apart from when we go to the wrong Albert Place in Melbourne and arrive for a conference 40 minutes late. Happened tonight. My talk tonight is called Punching Through the Noise. I actually realised a week ago when I did this talk in Sydney that that's an incredibly bad name for a talk, and you can't actually punch through noise. Or probably you probably can in some kind of science way, but I came up with that with a bit of a red wine hangover. But really what I want to talk about is considerations when creating branded entertainment and working with brands. And I know Tim sort of talked about it earlier on. And a lot of you guys are making more and more content, interesting content, and your audiences are growing and you're doing really well. And I think there's as that happens, brands are going to want to work with you more and want to get involved with you guys. So there's a few things to think about when we're in that area. So let's have a look. What is branded entertainment or branded content? Well, what it isn't this. Oh, that worked.
Focus here.
What I want you to forget are the words, things like product placement, sponsored by, infomercials, and all that kind of stuff. What I'm talking about tonight is content that is entertaining at its core, but at the same time delivers a brand message. The type of content can manifest itself as a TV show, as a digital series, as a YouTube channel, or brands within your own YouTube channel, brand messages within your own YouTube channels, or all of the above as a kind of like cross-platform extravaganza.
I'm sorry, you were saying
okay, let's watch that again.
Sell stuff?
Look,
why have brands turned to content? Now, we all recognize the brands on this slide: DC Shoes, Red Bull, obviously, Renault, and Burberry. I mean, Red Bull, for instance, an energy drink, we now really don't think of as an energy drink. We think of it more as a media owner, almost, one of the owners of that space of extreme sports, rather than the drink that it is at its core. People like Renault have created their own channels in the IPTV space and online, creating lots and lots of content of covering all kinds of different genres, but with their brand at their core. And people like Burberry, for instance, which is a really interesting story. In the UK, Burberry was a high-end brand, and then at some point, quite a few years ago, it was sort of it turned into this sort of joke because every sort of chav in the world was wearing it, and chavs in England, like football hooligans and stuff, were wearing Burberry stuff. And they really needed to sort of change their brand, and they really embraced social media and content production to sort of take it to a next level. And now they're working in the areas of music and working with emerging artists and now quite famous artists to kind of put themselves in a space that allows their brand to be seen in a different light. And they're creating stuff like this now, which is really beautiful. And it's a little example of where they've taken their brand using music that they were doing online into a kind of live space. So, beautifully shot, big events, big stars, and people like Yoko Ono in the audience and stuff like that. So they really use content to that end to kind of really take it to the next level. But why content? Why do brands want to use it? And what does it do for them? Well, it allows brands to engage with audiences in a deeper, more meaningful way than regular advertising. Content can and should convey a narrative. It should tell a story, and it should drive the emotions of the people that watch it. And that is something you guys are doing really well without brands, by the way. But that is why brands want to get involved in this space, because rather than traditional advertising, which was all about forcing a message and shouting at people, What they're realizing now is that you're no longer speaking to someone, you're speaking with them. And it's no longer force, it's about choice. And that's what content's about. That's what creating deeper, more meaningful content is about your audience choosing to watch it and choosing to engage with it, rather than having messages by brands forced at them. So what does it mean to you guys? You guys that I like to see as the grassroots content creators, the YouTube channel creators, the creative minds at the front line. Well, relatively speaking, you're ahead of the game, and you've got the great opportunity now to really lead that game in what you're doing. You're already creating a lot of content, you already got audiences, you're already building audiences, you're doing and trying to follow what you really love. The internet's only going to get faster and faster, especially in Australia. More and more content is being consumed on the internet. People have more choices of the way they consume content. So if you can grow your audiences and make more content and generally keep raising your game, then you're going to become extremely valuable within the world of brands. Remember, brands can help to fund drive your creativity. So if you get offered a chance to work with a brand, if you get offered a chance to answer a brief and wind a brand's message into your content, really see that as a way of driving a creative idea, using it to come up with something new, and using it to come up with a new idea or a new direction to go with. An example of something I worked on in the UK was we got a brief through from Emirates flights, and they wanted to show how people who are creative and sort of quite well known in their areas used Emirates flights to run around the world and do creative stuff. Now, rather than sort of create something that showed people in their aeroplanes or in business class, working on ideas or anything like this, which is sort of, kind of what the brief was leaning at, we came up with a show that went on the BBC, and it was called Collaboration Culture, and this is the title sequence. It gives you a kind of idea of what happens. It was an 8-parter, and really we took that content. We got some really amazing artists and people to work together around the world. Flew them by Emirates. Never showed an Emirates plane in the content, and Emirates sort of presented it and owned the show around it. But they also used the content in their own channels and their own distribution ways. Really to sort of show off that they were working with these kind of people. And actually, in the actual content, it was all about these guys and what they wanted to do together, and we had some really great results. However, working with brands, we live in a fragmented media world, as you all know. There's more and more ways to consume content. There's more and more different ways from mobile to different social media networks where content's available, to TV, to everything like that. So now it's harder than ever to really hold on to an audience and grow a big audience, because there are so many around. Audiences can be fickle. Audiences and viewers can treat you like a bank manager. 1 minute they want to lend you loads of cash and help you buy a house, and the moment you can't repay them, they're going to kick you out on the street and never speak to you again. So you really got to learn how to capture an audience by being true to yourself and true to your content and true to what they want to listen to and learn, and also keep them there by feeding them and giving them new content to engage with, and also engaging with them on a real level, not just sort of pumping content at them, actually working with them and talking with them and getting them involved with the content you make. Billions of hours of content are consumed every day. Billions, millions, trillions, zillions. There's a lot of video out there, as we all know. There's a lot of different stuff to look at. So this is where that punching through the noise sort of line comes through, is how can you make, you've got to think about really is how to make content that people are going to want to watch and latch onto and stay with you and follow you and enable you therefore to keep making content, potentially grow your audiences to a size that become attractive in a commercial sense, that allows you to monetize your content even more, and allows you, like Leahy 11, who is enabled herself to live off it just about already. So here we are, and this is how I see you guys as the brave knights. What have I written here? So now, like knights on a quest for the Holy Grail, we go forth to conquer the content, branded content world. And here you are. There is the media company, the castle, and there you are, jogging off towards them, galloping off towards them to take them on and to work with brands. Now, before we do that, there are some rules we need to think about and some guidelines. Essentially, as I'll come to, you guys aren't, and I'll sort of say this again at the end, you guys aren't doing anything wrong, and you shouldn't really get too hung up about how to make yourselves attractive to brands, but there are ways to grow your audiences, and that's kind of what you want to do anyway. So rule number 6, think socially and be interactive. Now, Andrew talked about this in far more detail than me, but really develop relationships, be responsive, act quickly, involve your audience in your content, as I've mentioned, and use every suitable kind of tool at your disposal, as Andrew mentioned earlier. I worked on a thing called Being Human, which is a drama series for the BBC. It didn't have any brands involved, but it was a drama about a vampire, a werewolf, and a ghost. Yeah, thank you. Living in Bristol in a flat together, and we created an online, whole online sort of show and social media operation around that, where we grew the audience online via BBC blogs. There was some we weren't really in a position in the early days and enabled to work within Facebook and stuff because of the BBC's guidelines, but eventually we did. And it really grew the kind of following of that show. And if you thought of that as a TV show as the actual brand, the way we used all those tools online and everything, and it created online series, break-off series, extra content, etc. It really kind of brought the TV show to a next level and brought that audience to the next level. So do that. Rule number 5, don't take a brand's brief for granted. So if you get a brief from a brand who want to work with you and want to work with your content, just because you've heard of the brand, you kind of think you know what they're doing. Don't just sort of think, oh yeah, well, I can fit that in this way, I can fit that way. You've really got to kind of work out what that brand wants, work to understand their problem, and think really creatively about the solution you're going to give them. Now, we work in agencies where there are people paid money, lots of money, to come up with ideas for brands and ways for brands to kind of use content or whatever in this sort of situation. Now, there's lots of creative people around doing that in these places that are sort of directly talking to the clients. But that doesn't mean you guys, in the way you work and bearing in mind the content you make and also the audience that you have, can't come up with a really shit hot solution to a brief. So the kind of message here is, if you do get that brief, is really kind of think about your audience, think about the stuff you love to create, and think about how you can creatively wind that message in that they want to create, but in your own way. And I think with your solutions are really going to get listened to within agencies, and they're going to stand up and listen. And it's something that we're looking at more and more. So don't be scared to think out of the box, but also remain true to yourself.